Ah!
No, no, please, please, please.
I should cut off your head and stick it on a spike, like my old friend Vlad Tepes did to the insolents who snooped around his castle as well.
Please, dude, please.
You are not worthy of life, mortal.
No. What if I can become worthy? What if I can prove myself?
And what is it exactly you propose?
I'll do a tribute. I'll do a tribute on Christopher Lee and his Dracula films from Hammer Productions. Please, I'll do anything.
All right. I will allow you to prove yourself. It is going to be a pleasure watching you sweat while you await my decision. Do not fail me. Oh, and one more thing. Do yourself, me, and the audience a massive favor. Put this on while you do the review. You look like a damn fool wearing what you currently wear. As you might have seen from moments ago, I'm highly motivated to make this video. I just want to save my life. So I'm going to make the most extensive review of Christopher Lee's legacy as a Dracula and his major films in Hammer production, 7 of them. So without further ado, please consider subscribing to my channel if you deem me worthy, and let's go right after intro.
So, the fish... Shh, pretty little girl, pretty little girl. Pretty little girl, pretty little girl.
Before we dive deep into 7 Hammer production movies with Christopher Lee starring as Count Dracula, allow me to read the in memoriam I wrote for the late Sir Christopher Lee. Dear Mr. Lee, thank you for enriching our lives and our own imagination with veracity, quality, and dedication of your genre-defining style of acting. You have acted in over 200 movies throughout your career, a number not many actors can boast. But numbers alone do not speak of your actions. What does is countless dedications, awards, and reviews you received as the years went by. And with your final words, your faithful audience, you decided not to boast or thrive, but rather express your humble gratitude to the audience who is with you throughout this wonderful ride called life. And now I will play you his final clip and his final message to the audience.
Hello, and greetings to you all, wherever you may be. And thank you, as always, for your appreciation and help during my life as an actor.
Thank you all for watching, and let us begin with movie descriptions and my thoughts in chronological order. Dracula, 1958, is a British Gothic horror film directed by Terence Fisher, and it is based by the novel of Bram Stoker of 1897, the first in the series of Hammer horror films starring Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. In the United States, the film was retitled Horrors of Dracula to avoid confusion with the US original by the Universal Pictures 1931's Dracula. It was also the first movie ever to be shot in color, vampire movie that is. What Christopher Lee brings to this film is his soon-to-become undenying style, ferocity, and the commanding of respect whenever he is on screen. In 2017, a poll of 150 actors, directors, writers, producers, and critics for Time Out magazine saw Dracula ranked the 65th best British film ever. Empire magazine ranked Lee's portrayal as Count Dracula the 7th greatest horror movie character of all times. But if we were to rank 10 best Dracula characters portrayed in movies, I believe that Christopher Lee would rank number 2, second only to Gary Oldman's Dracula. The second movie in the Hammer production with Christopher Lee is Dracula, Prince of Darkness from 1966. Dracula, Prince of Darkness is a 1966 British horror supernatural film directed by Terence Fisher. It is also the second movie to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. A prologue replays the final scene from Dracula in which Dr. Van Helsing destroys Count Dracula by sunlight. Only the memory of Dracula's evil remains. Count Dracula is resurrected when his servant Clove murders a traveler and uses his blood to restore the vampire from ashes. 4 English tourists who ignore warnings themselves are trapped in Dracula's castle as the Count begins preying on them. Helen becomes Dracula's first victim, forcing Charles and Diana to flee and seek help from Father Sandor. Dracula pursues Diana, hoping to claim her as his next victim. In the end, Father Sandor destroys Dracula by breaking the ice beneath him, sending the vampire into freezing water. What Lee brings unique to his character. Lee's claim, the actor stated in interviews that he read the dialogue in the scripts and thought it was so laughably terrible that he refused to say the lines. Please, watch the clip for yourselves.
It's called Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which was the second Dracula picture that I was in. And interestingly enough, there was a gap of something like 7 years between the first one and the second one, because I think the first one was made in 1957 or 8, and the second one certainly was made in 1965. People all over the world who've seen that film have asked me why I didn't speak in it. I didn't say a word throughout the entire film. The answer is very simple. I read the script, and the lines were literally unsayable. They were not Bram Stoker. This was a great fight I used to have over the years with Hammer. I kept on saying, why don't you use Stoker's words, Stoker's dialogue, if you like? No. So somebody used to write up lines like, I am the apocalypse, and beyond belief. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm not saying these lines. You get a terrific laugh, which I'm quite convinced we would have done.
Moving on to movie number 3, that is Dracula Has Risen from the Grave from 1968. Dracula Has Risen from the Grave is a 1968 British supernatural horror film directed by Freddie Francis and the third movie to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. Count Dracula is accidentally resurrected when a priest's blood drips on his frozen corpse during an exorcism attempt. Enraged that his castle has been sealed by a holy cross, Dracula enslaves the priest and seeks revenge on Monsignor Mullet, the man responsible. He targets the Monsignor's niece, Maria, intending to make her his new victim. Maria's lover, Paul, fights to protect her as Dracula spreads terror through the town of Greenberg. In the final confrontation, Dracula is destroyed when he falls onto the discarded cross, crumbling to dust as the priest regains his faith. What Christopher Lee brings unique to his character is pure physicality. He relies on towering height, stalking movements, and body language to project menacing authority and control. Intense facial expressions. The performance leans heavily on his piercing, bloodshot gaze, aggressive hissing, and facial expressions rather than words, and also silent seduction. He relies on a magnetic, terrifying, seductive presence rather than spoken charm to lure his victims. Let us move on to movie number 4, which is called Taste the Blood of Dracula, made in 1970. Taste the Blood of Dracula is a 1970 British supernatural horror film produced by Hammer Film Productions. It is directed by Peter Sasley and also the fourth to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. Count Dracula is resurrected when 3 corrupt Victorian gentlemen participate in a dark ritual using the powerful blood of the vampire. After the ritual goes wrong and they kill the young acolyte who summoned Dracula, the Count vows revenge on all 3 men. He manipulates the acolyte's grieving friends, Alice's lover Paul, and even Alice herself to strike at the men through their own families. One by one, Dracula orchestrates the downfall of 3 hypocritical gentlemen who pretend to be respectable pillars of society. In the end, Paul and Alice confront Dracula in a ruined church where the vampire is destroyed when the sacred space forces him to crumble into dust. What Christopher Lee brings unique to his character, Christopher Lee's performance in Taste of the Blood of Dracula is notable for his commanding yet largely silent screen presence, emphasizing predatory physicality rather than dialogue. And we are moving on to film number 5, which is called Scars of Dracula, also in the year 1970. Scars of Dracula is a 1970 British horror film directed by Roy Ward Baker by Hammer Films. It stars Christopher Lee in his 5th Hammer production role as Count Dracula. Count Dracula is resurrected when a bat under his command drips blood onto his ashes inside Castle Dracula. A young man named Paul seeks refuge in the castle after fleeing a scandal, only to fall victim to Dracula. When Paul disappears, his brother Simon and Paul's fiancée Sarah travel to the village and eventually to the castle to find him. Dracula becomes obsessed with Sarah and attempts to claim her, unleashing violence on both villagers and his own servant Clove. In the climax, Simon wounds Dracula with a sword and lightning strikes the metal weapon, burning the vampire to death as he collapses to ashes. What Lee brings unique to his character to this 5th movie is, unlike the silent brooding monster of earlier sequels, he acts as an articulate, charming host while also displaying a new, sinister level of cruelty. Moving on to movie number 6, which is called Dracula AD 1972. Dracula AD 1972 is a 1972 British horror film directed by Alan Gibson and produced by Hammer Film Production. It is the sixth Hammer Film production to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. Count Dracula is resurrected in 1970s London with a group of thrill-seeking youths perform a black mass ritual in an abandoned church using the blood of their leader, Johnny Alucard. Dracula immediately targets Jessica Van Helsing, the granddaughter of his old nemesis, determined to destroy the Van Helsing bloodline once and for all. Johnny spreads vampires in one group, turning the rebellion into a wake of undead chaos. Professor Lorimer Van Helsing investigates the strange deaths and realizes Dracula has returned after a century. In the final battle, Van Helsing traps Dracula in a desecrated church and kills him with a stake and holy water, ending the vampire's latest reign of terror. What Lee brings unique for his own character to this movie is he was frustrated by the script's poor dialogue, which he felt insulted Bram Stoker's original novel. Lee flatly refused to speak his lines. Instead, he relied entirely on physical acting, glaring eyes, and facial expressions to deliver a menacing presence. And moving on to the final Hammer production, Dracula, which is the Satanic Rites of Dracula, made in 1973. The Satanic Rites of Dracula is a 1973 British horror film directed by Alan Gibson and produced by Hammer Film Productions. It is also seventh and final Christopher Lee role under the production house as Count Dracula. Count Dracula hides in modern-day London under the alias of a reclusive tycoon leading a secret cult of powerful government figures. MI5 uncovers the cult's activities and brings in Professor Lorimer Van Helsing, who discovers that Dracula plans to unleash a deadly plague to wipe out humanity. Van Helsing's granddaughter becomes a target once again as Dracula uses his influence and followers to trap her. The vampire's plan spirals into violence as his cultists turn on each other and the plague threat grows imminent. Van Helsing confronts Dracula in the woods and destroys him by forcing a weakened Count onto a hawthorn bush, ending his apocalyptic scheme. What Lee brings unique to his character in the Satanic Rites of Dracula in 1973, Christopher Lee's performance is unique because it transitions the Count into a modern supervillain, proving once again that he can adapt to any role. In conclusion, I would like to say thank you all for watching, and I hope the life of Christopher Lee, his actions, his dedication, the gentleman he was, enriched your life and imagination a little bit as much as it did mine. I also hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did creating it. And for the end of this video, I have created one musical that will be playing in accordance to the slide of pictures of Christopher Lee during his life. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing to my channel if you liked it. And until next time, I will see you again.